Hey, I'm Sarah, and today, I'll share with you the story of Celeste, titled, My Parents Forced Me to Sell My House to Settle My Sister's $150,000 debt after they cut me off 5 years ago. Family is supposed to help one another, right? Well, I refused, and they broke into my house, destroying everything. But little did they know, this house had secrets. Let's dive in. So here I am, Celeste, 33 years old, sitting in my home office on what I thought would just be another average Tuesday. I work as a programmer at a large tech firm, and to be honest, the pay is pretty great. 4 years ago, I took the plunge and purchased this house with a mortgage, and it's been the best decision I've made. I set up my office here, and now I can work remotely thanks to my company's flexible policies. Things have been going well for me lately. About a year ago, I met an amazing guy named Marcus online, who lives in another state. We've been doing the long-distance relationship thing, visiting each other back and forth, and it's been fantastic. Now, I'm even thinking of selling my house and moving to his state so we can live together. Since my job allows me to work from anywhere, it just makes sense. I was in the middle of coding when I heard the familiar email notification ping. Usually, I ignore emails when I'm focused, but something urged me to check it. It was sent to my old email address, one I barely use anymore. And seeing who sent it made my stomach drop. Mom. I hadn't spoken to my family in 5 years, and there's a very good reason for that. Let me take a step back and explain my family situation. I have my parents, both in their early 60s now, and then there's my sister, Sarah, who's 3 years older than me, so she's 36. Sarah is married to a guy named David, and honestly, he's just as much of a disaster as she is. 5 years ago, things were different. I was still in contact with them, doing the whole family thing. I was making good money back then, living in a rented apartment, but I was also saving like crazy to buy a house. I had over $120,000 saved up, and I was proud of that. My plan was to make a large down payment to keep my mortgage payments low. Every Saturday, I'd visit my parents' house for dinner, which was a tradition we had. Back then, I actually looked forward to it. But then one Saturday, everything changed. I walked into my parents' house, and Sarah and David were already there, excitedly talking to Mom and Dad about something. I greeted everyone, and sat down at the table. That's when Mom turned to me with a big grin and said, Sarah's planning to start her own business, and we know she's going to be so successful. I smiled back, but inside I was thinking, here we go again. You see, this wasn't Sarah's first attempt. She tried starting businesses twice before, and both times, it ended in total failure. Both times, Mom and Dad had to bail her out financially. But I kept quiet because I knew if I said anything, I'd be the bad guy. My parents always sided with Sarah. Sarah, practically bouncing in her seat, said, I've got everything figured out this time, Celeste. I've got a complete business plan, and I just need money for development. She and David both turned to look at me, their eyes full of expectation. Why are you looking at me like that? I asked. Sarah's voice turned sweet and manipulative as she replied, I know you've saved up around $120,000 for your house. You could invest it in my business, and in a couple of years, I'll double it and pay you back $240,000. I couldn't help but laugh. Sarah, you've already failed twice at business. Maybe it's time to get a regular job like the rest of us. That's when everything spiraled out of control. Sarah's face turned red, and she started crying. She ran out of the house, and David followed her, calling me an idiot as he left. So there I was left alone with Mom and Dad, thinking maybe now they'd see reason. But no, they immediately started accusing me of being cruel, selfish, and greedy. I was just speaking the truth, telling them that if Sarah started another business, she'd just rack up more debt. But Mom wasn't having any of it. Sarah is more talented than you, Celeste. You're just jealous of her success. Then Dad dropped the bomb. You either give Sarah that $120,000, or we're cutting you out of this family completely. I stared at them, these people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, and said, I'm not giving her my money. They kicked me out of their house. They actually told me to leave and never come back. The next day, I changed my phone number and made sure they couldn't contact me. A year later, I bought my house just as planned. For 5 years, I lived without them. I heard through mutual friends that Sarah started her business, and it was doing well. She bought a beautiful house and traveled all the time with David. I was genuinely happy for her, but I still didn't want anything to do with any of them. So you can imagine my shock when I saw Mom's name in my inbox after all this time. My hands were shaking as I opened the email. Celeste, we need to see you urgently. This is a matter of life and death. Please come home. My first thought? One of them must be dying. Although I was still furious, I wasn't heartless. If someone's life was at risk, I had to know. It dawned on me that they must have used my old email because they couldn't reach me in any other way. I sat there for what felt like forever, staring at the email. Part of me wanted to delete it and pretend I'd never seen it. But then what if Dad was having a heart attack? What if Mom had cancer? I knew I'd never forgive myself if something happened and I didn't at least check in. So I replied briefly, I'll come by this Saturday. Saturday morning arrived much too quickly. I hardly slept, replaying every possible outcome in my mind. My stomach was in knots as I drove to my parents' house. It felt strange being back in that neighborhood after 5 years. Everything seemed smaller than I remembered. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw 2 cars already parked there. Sarah's Porsche and David's Mercedes. They both looked brand new and ridiculously expensive. Great. So this wasn't just going to be me and my parents. Sarah and David were here too. I sat in my car for a moment, trying to steel myself. Whatever was going on, it clearly involved the whole family. I walked up to the door and knocked. Mom opened it, and we just stared at each other for a second. She looked older, more exhausted. There were new lines around her eyes. Celeste, she said, her voice trembling. Thank you for coming. I followed her into the living room, and there they were. Dad was in his usual chair, looking grim. Sarah sat on the couch next to David, her eyes red and puffy as though she had been crying. Oddly enough, despite everything, they all seemed relieved to see me, though also terrified of something. I stood, not wanting to get too comfortable. What's going on? Your email said this was life or death. Mom sat down and immediately started to cry. It's about Sarah. She's in serious trouble. I glanced at my sister. She couldn't look me in the eye. David held her hand, and he seemed equally frightened. What kind of trouble? I asked. Dad cleared his throat. Her business went under 3 months ago. She owes a lot of money to the bank, and they took her house. I felt a strange mix of sadness and a bit of satisfaction. Losing a house is awful, but part of me thought, I told you so. I kept that thought to myself though. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. But what does this have to do with me? Mom wiped her eyes. That's not all. Even after losing the house, she still owes a huge sum to some very dangerous people. Sarah finally spoke, her voice barely audible. $150,000. Who do you owe that much to? I asked. David answered for her. Private investors. They're not the kind of people who take, I'll pay you later for an answer. They've been calling, Sarah said, crying again. They're making threats. They know where we live. They know our routines. We're scared, Celeste. I felt sorry for them, I really did. But I still didn't get why I was here. That's horrible, but I still don't understand what you want from me. That's when Mom dropped the bombshell. We know you bought a house. A nice one. We think you should sell it and help Sarah pay off these debts. I stared at her, stunned. Are you out of your mind? You're young, Mom said. You can always buy another house. Sarah and David could be in real danger if they don't pay this money back, Dad added. I looked around the room at all of them. So let me get this straight. You kicked me out of the family 5 years ago because I wouldn't give Sarah money for her business. Now that business has failed badly. She's in debt to some dangerous people, and you want me to sell my house to bail her out. Family helps family, Dad said. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You told me I wasn't family anymore. Remember? You cut me off completely. Sarah broke into harder sobs. I know we messed up before, but this is different. These people won't just take us to court. They're going to hurt us. Then maybe you should have thought about that before borrowing money from loan sharks, I replied. David got angry. You have no idea what kind of pressure we're under. You're right, I don't, I said. But I saw two very expensive cars in the driveway. Maybe you should start by selling those and pay off some of the debt. We need those cars for work, Sarah snapped. You need them more than you need to be safe from dangerous creditors, I retorted. Mom stood up and stepped right into my space. If you sold this house, she said, you could settle Sarah's debts and still have enough left to buy a nice apartment. A nice apartment? I was starting to lose my patience. Mom, I busted my butt to buy that house. I saved every penny for years. I'm not selling it to clean up Sarah's mess. She's your sister, and Dad said she's a grown woman who made her own choices. Bad ones, apparently. Sarah shot up from the couch. You're supposed to help me. You're supposed to care about what happens to me. Where was all this loyalty 5 years ago when you told me to get lost? That was different, Mom responded. How was it different? You didn't want to help me keep my money then, and I'm not helping you with your financial troubles now. A brief silence followed. Everyone was staring at me as if I were the villain. I'm not doing this, I said. Sarah got herself into this mess, and she can get herself out. If you want to help her so badly, sell your house and give her the money. Mom gasped as if I had slapped her. This is the only house we have. We're old, Celeste. We can't just start over like you can. Then I guess you understand how I feel about my house, I said, heading toward the door. Sarah called after me. You're making a huge mistake. These people don't mess around. I turned back to face her. Neither do I. I left them sitting there and drove home. The moment I got back, I blocked Mom's email. I was done with their drama. For the next week, things were peaceful. No one reached out to me. I started thinking maybe they finally understood that I wasn't going to be their family ATM anymore. Marcus called me every day during that time. I filled him in on everything. He was so supportive and understanding. You did the right thing, he told me. They can't just show up after 5 years and expect you to fix everything. I was starting to feel good about my decision. Sure, I felt bad for Sarah, but it wasn't my fault or my responsibility. I had my own life to focus on. Then Tuesday morning came. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard a car door slam outside. I glanced out the window and almost dropped my mug. Mom and Dad were walking up my driveway. How the hell did they find my address? I opened the door before they could knock, already pissed off. What are you doing here? How did you even get my address? Mom looked smug. Sarah hired a private investigator. We needed to speak to you face to face since you blocked my email. A private investigator? I couldn't believe it. Are you serious? Dad was scanning my house, clearly calculating how much it might be worth. This is a nice place, he said. Get off my property, I snapped. But Mom walked right past me and into the house as if she had every right to be there. Dad followed her. I stood there, shocked by their audacity. Don't get comfortable, I said. You're not staying. Mom walked around the living room, touching things and inspecting everything. If you sold this house, you could easily pay off Sarah's debt and still have plenty left over for something smaller. Maybe a nice apartment. I already told you, I'm not selling my house. But look at all this space, Dad argued, spreading his arms. It's just you living here. You don't need all this room. What I need is none of your business. Mom turned to me, tears welling in her eyes again. Sarah is really scared, Celeste. These men called her yesterday. They know where she and David are staying. They said if they don't get their money by the end of the month, something bad will happen. Then maybe Sarah should go to the police. The police can't help with this, Dad replied. These are the kind of people who don't care about restraining orders. I was getting more and more frustrated. That's still not my problem. You both need to leave now. We're not leaving until you agree to help your sister, Mom said, crossing her arms. Then I'm calling the police. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. Dad grabbed my arm. Don't be ridiculous. Here is the rewritten version of the script as requested. Let go of me. I yanked my arm away. I'm calling them right now if you don't leave my house. They could see I meant business. Mom started crying harder. Fine, but this isn't over, Celeste. If something happens to Sarah, it'll be your fault. And if bailing her out wrecks my financial security, that'll be on me too. At least this way, only the person who made the mess has to face the consequences. Dad pointed at me. You're going to regret this. Family is supposed to stick together. You didn't think that 5 years ago. They left, but not before Dad made some vague threat about me facing consequences for abandoning my family. I locked the door behind them and immediately called the realtor I had spoken to a few weeks ago about possibly selling my house to move in with Marcus. Hey, it's Celeste. Remember we talked about listing my house? I need to sell it as quickly as possible. I'm willing to offer a 5% discount if that helps speed things up. That's good timing, the realtor replied. I actually have a buyer interested in your area. With that kind of discount, I think he'll be very interested. Let me make a few calls. 3 days later, he called me back with an offer. It wasn't as high as I had hoped, but it was reasonable considering the quick sale and the discount I had offered. I accepted right away. When I told Marcus, he was confused. I explained. My parents showed up at my house. I don't trust them, Marcus. I think they'll keep harassing me, maybe even do something insane. I'd rather sell the house and put the money somewhere they can't touch. That's probably the best move, he agreed. And hey, this means you can come stay with me sooner than planned. That made me smile for the first time in days. Are you okay with me staying at your place while I search for a new house nearby? Are you kidding? I've been hoping you'd move here. This just speeds things up. The closing process was quick. Within a week, all the paperwork was done, and the house was officially sold. Marcus came out to help me pack and move everything to his place. Having him there made everything feel easier, like I wasn't handling all the stress alone. As we loaded the last of my boxes into the truck, I took one final look at the house. I had been happy there. I'd worked hard to make it mine, but now, selling it felt like the right decision. I was about to start a new chapter with Marcus, and my family couldn't use my house as leverage anymore. You okay? Marcus asked, putting his arm around me. Yeah, I'm good. Let's go. We drove off together, and a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. Whatever happened with Sarah and her debt problems, it was no longer my problem, and it wouldn't cost me anything. I was finally free from their drama. Living with Marcus turned out to be amazing. His place was cozy, and working remotely made it easy for me to settle into a new routine. We spent our evenings browsing houses online, dreaming about our future together. For the first time in months, I felt truly happy and stress-free. About a month later, one Tuesday morning, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but it had my old hometown area code. Is this Celeste Morrison? The voice sounded official. Yes. Who's calling? This is Officer Martinez from the Riverside Police Department. I'm calling about an incident involving your parents, Robert and Linda Morrison. My blood ran cold. What kind of incident? They were arrested last night for breaking and entering and destruction of property. The homeowner intends to press charges. I was bewildered. Breaking and entering? Where exactly? The address they forced their way into is listed as your old residence. Was 847 Maple Street a house you once owned? I sold it about a month ago. So, what were my parents doing there? That's what we're trying to understand. They caused a lot of damage inside the house, destroyed furniture, smashed windows, and spray-painted the walls. The new owner came home to find them in his living room, using a baseball bat to break his coffee table. Are you kidding me? Not at all. The estimated damage is around $40,000. Your parents claimed they thought it was still your house, and that you had somehow wronged them. They said they were seeking revenge on you. I sank heavily onto Marcus' couch. Officer, I need to tell you something. My parents have been harassing me for weeks, demanding I sell my house and give them the money. When I refused, they made threats. What kind of threats? I explained everything about Sarah's debts, how they'd been showing up uninvited at my place, and the entire 5 years of family drama. Officer Martinez listened quietly and jotted down notes. So they didn't know you had sold the house? Clearly not. They probably went there thinking they were destroying my property as payback. That's what it seems like. The problem is they ended up destroying someone else's property. The new homeowner is understandably upset. He's filing insurance claims, but he wants your parents prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I can't blame him. After I hung up, I filled Marcus in on the situation. He was just as shocked as I was. That's crazy, Celeste. They could have been shot. What if the homeowner had been armed? I hadn't even considered that. My parents could have been killed over this foolish vendetta. Over the next few weeks, I received updates from both the police and some friends back home. Mom and Dad were facing serious charges, but their lawyer worked out a plea deal. They confessed to the crime in exchange for avoiding jail time, but they had to pay full restitution to the homeowner. It was $40,000 for the damages, plus legal fees and court costs. The total came close to $60,000. My friend Jenny called to fill me in on the whole story. Celeste, your parents had to sell their house. They couldn't afford to pay the restitution any other way. They sold the house they claimed was their only valuable asset. The one they said was irreplaceable because of their age. Yep. And here's the twist. After paying everything they owed, they gave whatever was left to Sarah to help with her debt problems. I couldn't believe it. So they ended up doing exactly what they wanted me to do, but with their own house instead of mine. That's not even the best part. Sarah's creditor issues. Turns out they weren't as serious as she made them seem. The dangerous people were just a legitimate investment firm threatening to sue her. No broken bones, no mysterious accidents, just normal legal action. So Sarah exaggerated the danger. Essentially, she made it all worse to make your parents panic and put more pressure on you. This information hit me like a ton of bricks. Sarah had convinced everyone, including our parents, that her life was at risk, when in reality, she was only dealing with a lawsuit. So, where are Mom and Dad living now? They're in a small rental apartment with Sarah and David. All four of them are squeezed into a 2-bedroom place. I've heard things aren't going well, lots of fighting. Honestly, I felt sorry for them. Not enough to reach out though. A few months later, I found out that my family had been trying to get in touch with me through mutual friends. They wanted to apologize, explain themselves, and repair our relationship. Each time someone mentioned it, I said no. Jenny called me once more about it. Your mom asked me to tell you she's sorry. They realized they handled everything wrong, she said. It's too late for sorry, I told her. They spent 5 years not caring whether I was alive or dead. Then they expected me to bankrupt myself because of Sarah's mistakes. And when I wouldn't do what they wanted, they broke the law. I'm done. But they're family, Celeste, she argued. No, they're not. Family doesn't disappear for 5 years and then show up demanding money. Family doesn't hire private investigators to stalk you. Family doesn't break into homes with baseball bats. Marcus had been listening to my side of the conversation. When I hung up, he took my hand. You okay? I'm perfect, actually. We found a house we both love. I'm doing well at work, and I don't have to deal with their drama anymore. He smiled, then said, speaking of the house we love, I was thinking, how about something bigger than an offer? He got down on one knee in our living room and pulled out a ring box. Celeste, will you marry me? We can buy that house together and start our real life. I started crying happy tears for the first time in months. Yes, absolutely. Yes. We got engaged that day and put in an offer on the house that weekend. Our offer was accepted, and we're planning our wedding for next year. Sometimes I think about my family and wonder if I made the right decision cutting them off completely. Then I remember how peaceful my life has been without their constant chaos and manipulation. And I know I did. Sarah created her own problems with bad business choices. Mom and Dad chose to enable her instead of letting her face the consequences. They all chose to harass me rather than deal with their own issues. They chose to break the law when I wouldn't give in to their demands. I chose to build a life with someone who loves and supports me. I chose to protect my financial security and peace of mind. I chose to surround myself with people who don't manipulate or threaten me. I think I made the better choice. Marcus and I are making wedding plans and even talking about having kids someday. My career is going great, and I've been promoted. I'm happy, truly happy. And none of this would have been possible if I had let my family pull me back into their mess. So no, I don't regret cutting them off. Not for a second.